Hi there, welcome to Read Remark. I'm Beth. Today we're going to do an October book wrap-up. We're going to talk about all the books I read in October and how wonderful they were. Thanks for joining, guys. Today we're going to do an October reading wrap-up. I know I say this a lot, but October was a really good month for books. I also have a book reviewing blog at readremark.com where I write reviews of all of these books. So if you want to learn more about a book, see more of what I had to say about it, I'll include links for each of the reviews for the corresponding books in the show notes. Let's dig right in. Number 1 is Theft by Finding by David Sedaris. So I am a long-time David Sedaris fan. He is a humorist. Usually he'll write down anecdotes in his diary and then share them, and he has such a dry wit. You might know him from the Santaland Diaries, his famous NPR piece about his time working in Macy's as one of Santa's elves. You may know him from Me Talk Pretty One Day, the book where he tries to learn French and it does not go well at all, and he has kind of a sadistic French teacher. Just any number of things that he's put out. And so Theft by Finding goes through his diaries from 1976 through 2002. You get to see some of his greatest hits. So we revisit things like his troubled relationship with his sister Tiffany, his relationship with Hugh and how it's lasted for such a long time, his past. It's really cool getting to go back to his beginnings and see him rise from really not having a lot of money as a young adult to having it pretty nice as a successful adult. He even kind of makes fun of himself. It may sound kind of like a medley of his greatest hits. A lot of these, if you're a longtime fan, are snippets of stories that we've already heard from him in more depth, but you get to see almost even more. It's kind of like, what if the director kept the camera rolling after the take ended and you got to see more and more of the character development, more of what happened behind the scenes? You get to see that with this book. And for someone who has been a longtime fan, I don't know how many times I can possibly say that, it's like gold. It's wonderful to see. For someone who's new to David Sedaris, it may seem a little out of context. It may take some getting used to his very, very dry, sardonic wit, but give him a try. Read some of his other stuff as well. He is hilarious. Number 2, A Dark Lure by Lorith Ann White. This one was a little bit of a tricky one for me because I read it going into it thinking it was a thriller, and then turns out it's a romantic thriller. But you know what? I have no problem with that at all. I love love. Love is wonderful. And honestly, the romance part of it is kind of understated. It's more in favor of the suspense, the thriller part of it. But I do want to say a quick word in defense of romance novels. I think sometimes in the literary world there is a tendency among some to have sort of an uppity, high-minded, almost snobbish approach to certain genres. So people who turn up their nose at chick lit, people who turn up their nose at romance novels, or at YA, people who think that they're too good or too intelligent or something like that for certain genres. I say, ain't no shame. Read what brings you pleasure. Read what you want to read. Read what keeps you reading. There are all sorts of reasons that we come to books, and I say whatever genre fills your gas bucket, take it without shame. There's nothing wrong with a romance novel, and so I'm saying that I was surprised that A Dark Lure was in the romance genre, not because I'm against it, but just because I went into it thinking one thing and came out with another. But you know what? I liked it. It was a good book, full of suspense. It had that nice little love element. You should read it. Trigger warning for anyone who has survived any sort of sexual assault. There is reference to that in this book, so just be aware of that if you're sensitive to that kind of thing. Number 3, A Stranger in the House by Sherry LaPena, or is it LaPena? However you say it. This was a good book as well. Honestly, all of the books that I'm talking about are good books. I wouldn't really talk about it if it was a horrible book. She is the woman who hit it big last year with The Couple Next Door. And A Stranger in the House reads kind of like The Couple Next Door 2.0. So Shari LaPena's world kind of made me think of Garrison Keillor's world, sort of a comparison there with the Lake Wobegon community that he created for his famous radio show, A Prairie Home Companion. He had a saying for Lake Wobegon along the lines of, where the women are strong, all the men are good looking, and the children are above average. So thinking about the parallel in Shari LaPena's world that she has created for both of her books, it's where the women are conniving and evil, the men are weak, and the children are victims. So it kind of follows those same themes in both of her books. I would recommend that you check it out. Number 4 is Sourdough by Robin Sloan. I did a whole other video on that book, which was full of cheesy puns about bread and yeast and rising. So you should go check that out if you want a bunch of jokes that are not actually funny, more the kind where you go, So I really sold you on that one, didn't I? So Sourdough follows Lois. She is a woman who has kind of had this sourdough starter dropped at her feet. Not literally, but someone gave it to her unexpectedly. And so she uses her analytical mind to build it up and rise it to new heights of deliciousness and success. And it's a lot of fun until it rises to a point that gets out of her control. So I keep talking about how wonderful this book is. It's delightful. You should read it. Number 5, Eleanor Oliphant is Completely Fine by Gail Honeyman. The thing about having to tell someone that you're completely fine means that you're probably the exact opposite of completely fine. And that's definitely the case with Eleanor Oliphant. Oh, how I loved this character. She kind of reminded me of Jack Nicholson's character in that movie As Good as It Gets, mixed with Dustin Hoffman's character in Rain Man, although I don't think that she's on the spectrum at all. Eleanor Oliphant is the victim of some mental distress. It's kind of hinted at throughout the book, but gets really specific as the book gets on, and it's heartbreaking. A lot of people had some trouble connecting with this character, but I found her delightful. She's completely awkward. She just doesn't know how to socialize, nor is she really that interested in it, until something happens that kind of forces her out into the world and forces her hand and takes her out from this vodka-induced slumber in which she has been hiding from the world. It's traumatic, it's revealing, it's heartwarming. And she's just such a quirky character to follow. She, her outward demeanor really covers up the oceans of emotion that she holds within until those come flooding out. I can really see this one becoming a movie, maybe produced by Reese Witherspoon. An idea. Number 6, Fierce Kingdom by Jen Phillips. Oh, wow. This book was so good. I gave it 5 stars. It was very, very suspenseful. A woman and her young son get caught inside a zoo in an active shooter situation overnight. So the zoo is about to close. They've had their day of fun. They're about to leave when they find shooters on the premises. And so she has to take her son, run and hide, and then keep him still and entertained and not freaking out, which if you're a parent, you'll know that young kids, it's like holding sand in your hands without any of it moving or getting free. It's just not going to happen. And so it's the constant pressure of keeping that demeanor for her child to keep him calm, but also the panic, the huge panic and sense of urgency she has as she has to struggle to survive the night in this zoo with these fierce creatures all around her, both human and animal. And also the fierceness that she finds within herself. Number 7, Little Fires Everywhere by Celeste Ng. I did a video for this one too, so you should check that one out as well. This book has been really hitting it big in the literary world, and with good reason. It has a lot of thematic elements, it has a lot of deeper meanings, but really at its core it's just a really good story about a mother, Mia, and her daughter Pearl, who move to a new town. They're very itinerant. They go from one place to another a lot and decide to set down roots in this town with the best of intentions, and then things happen that you know, some other people also have the best of intentions and manage to wreck everything. So it's just a really good story that you should definitely check out. Number 8, The Marriage Pact by Michelle Richmond. Whew, this book also was one that was very, there are a lot of books this month that have been very readable. What I mean by that is you just want to keep going. You want to keep going, whether reading it or listening to it in audiobook form or up in the middle of the night with it because you have to know what happens next. The Marriage Pact is one of those. Kind of in the same family as the Stepford Wives. So there's a couple that get married. They join this secretive, mysterious pact that's supposed to be kind of like a marriage club. The more they get into this, this club, the more they realize that they have gotten themselves into something real bad. They have made a huge mistake. There are a lot of different rules, regulations, and punishments that are doled out for infractions, either real or imagined. And to infract is really easy within this club slash cult. And by slash, I mean completely cult. It's, you know, you could look at someone wrong and the cult decides that you have to be punished. And the punishments are severe. Severe. Very severe. So, not for the faint of heart, but if you want something that's very thrilling, you should give it a read. Last but not least, The Lying Game by Ruth Ware. Ruth Ware is one of my favorite authors. It started with her book In a Dark, Dark Wood, which is her favorite book that I've read, my favorite book of hers that I've read. It's a really good book. And then she also wrote The Woman in Cabin 10, which is also good and has kind of an Agatha Christie, Murder on the Orient Express, but on a ship kind of vibe. And then here's The Lying Game, which has 4 friends who have been friends since they were in this private boarding school. And they used to make a game of course, lying to people until their lies got them into a lot of trouble. So some of the sins of the past have come back to haunt them in the present. The really interesting thing for this book is that the main character has a baby that she has to tote around with her. And I think that was just brilliant because it makes the story steeped in a little bit more reality. It's not just this fantastical thing where something happens apart from her real life and she just has to go over there and solve that and then come back. This is where her real life is really intermingling with these events in a bad way. Just a great book. Definitely good. October was also a really good month for authors. We had Kazuo Ishiguro, named a Nobel laureate. He authored such books as The Remains of the Day and Never Let Me Go, 2 very different but also very thoughtful books. Also, George Saunders won the Man Booker Prize for his book Lincoln and the Bardo. He also wrote 10th of November. I think it was December, the collection of short stories. That wasn't what he won the prize for, but that's my favorite by George Saunders that you should also check out if you haven't. So great month for authors, great month for me who got to read all of those great authors, and just good stuff all around for everyone. Thanks again for all of your recommendations. Keep them coming. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, give me any comments that you have, and I will catch you next time. Thanks guys. Bye.